Crunchy for your lunchy, it's a milky delight.
Hello everybody, hello children, I'm Sam and welcome to today's online field trip. Today we're in Northamptonshire, which is in the East Midlands. Now we are somewhere very exciting today because as you can see behind me we have a huge mountain, and this mountain is made of wheat grain. Now the reason why we're here is to learn all about wheat grain and how it's made into breakfast cereal. Very exciting indeed. This is our guide for today. This is Charles. Hello Charles.
Hello children.
Thank you so much for having us here. Now Charles is in charge of this grain store, and you live here with your family, don't you, and work here with your family. Maybe you can tell us how much grain is behind us, because this is a massive mountain.
Behind us here we have a heap of 1,500 tonnes of a wheat variety called Target, which is a good variety for turning into breakfast cereal.
Wow, that is a lot. I mean, that is very, very heavy indeed. Very heavy indeed. It makes me want to slide down it. It's so inviting. What will we be learning today while we're here, Charles?
Well, hopefully today we're going to tell you what happens to the grain when it leaves the farm and when it comes into here, and how we process it and grade it out so the very best grains go on to the breakfast cereal factory to make good quality breakfast cereals.
Great stuff. So the whole process, really, it's really exciting. Let's find out who we have joining us on today's online field trip. Let's go over to our schools. Our first school is the Avenue Primary School, and they're in Middlesbrough, and it's Mr. Kelly's class taking part today. Hello, children. Great stuff. Let's go over to our next school. That's Clover Hill Primary School in Newcastle, where we have Mrs. Rogerson's class taking part today. Let's go over to Spratton Hall Primary School now in Northampton, where we have Mr. White's class taking part. Hey children. Nice and loud there. And finally, let's go to Preston Green Primary in Kent, where Mrs. Crowhurst's class is taking part. Hello, children. Fantastic stuff. It's really great to have you all watching and learning with us today. I have to say, Spratton Hall Primary, there's a certain gentleman not too far away from me who used to go to that very same school, and your children went there as well, Charles, didn't they?
We've had some very happy days at Spratton Hall.
That's fantastic stuff. So really great to have you taking part. It's really going to be an exciting field trip. I think first of all we should start off by learning a little bit more about our host. So Charles, how long have you and your family been here at this store?
We've been in business for 30 years. Our business is based around working with farmers and buying all crops from them. We're very busy at harvest time. We take a lot of grain in then, and if necessary we'll dry it and we'll store it safely so that throughout the whole year we can supply that wheat and other products onto the breakfast cereal factories.
Fantastic. Is it one type of wheat that you store here, or is it lots of type of wheat?
We have lots of types of wheats. There are many, many, many different types of wheat, and they all perform differently when they are often cooked in breakfast cereal factories. So it's very important that we work with farmers to grow the right sort of wheat to make the best products for our customers.
Great. So this wheat behind us, this huge mountain, is Target wheat. And why is this such a good wheat for making breakfast cereal?
Well, it's got a nice flowery middle to it. It's got a good soft endosperm, and it performs consistently and well, and the biscuits all hold together nicely when they're cooked.
So it's a science and art, really, isn't it?
So, yes.
I'd like to find out a little bit more about how wheat grows. So can you tell us about the best conditions for growing wheat?
Well, we're very lucky in this part of the country. What you want to grow a crop is to have moisture, to have soil, decent soil, and nice sunshine. And having a combination of the three, and then you have some good farmers, you're able to grow good crops.
Fantastic. And I have, as if by magic, a lovely wheat sheaf here. It's very pretty, isn't it? So at what point would wheat look like this?
This is wheat when it's ready for harvesting.
Oh, okay.
Which is in August and September. If you have a look at that, you have an ear on one end and a straw, and inside the ear there's probably 20 different grains all attached. And it's very important that that can be harvested when it's just ripe, which is normally for about a week or 10 days.
Okay, and I found out something really interesting this week. I found out that some farmers actually bite into the wheat to make sure it's ready to be harvested, just to give it a last-minute check. And when you're doing it now, I was going to say, do you do it? So what are you looking for when you bite into the wheat, Charles?
If you crunch the grain, bite the grain, and you can hear a crunch, that means it's dry enough to put the combine harvester into the field.
Fantastic. So do you have other ways to do that, or is that just, do all farmers go around having a little bite of wheat?
We have lots of very technical machines to test it, but the teeth test is as good as any.
You have to just be careful not to break your teeth. Yes. Fantastic. Well, obviously, children, Charles is an expert. Knowing all about wheat, but I do know, Charles, that we do have some budding wheat experts out there, because we have some information and resources online all about wheat and how it's made into breakfast cereal. And I know some of you have been using that to learn all about wheat already, so I think we should put that to the test. Let's go over to the Avenue Primary School now and find out what Mr. Kelly's class has learned this week all about wheat. So do we have some children who would like to tell us some of the things they've learned there, Mr. Kelly?
We certainly do, Joe. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Joe, what are your facts, Joe?
There are 6 classes of wheat: hard red spring, soft white, hard red winter, soft red winter, durum, hard white.
Wow, amazing. So that class has learned a lot about wheat, especially the young boy there. There are 6 classes of wheat. There's hard red spring, soft white, hard red winter, soft red winter, durum, and hard white.
Wheats are grown all over the globe, and we have many different types of wheat, as you've just heard. In the UK, we're predominantly the soft white wheats.
Okay, great. Well, a lot of knowledge that's already been learned there. Let's get another fact. Let's go back over to the Avenue Primary School.
1 acre of wheat can produce enough wheat to feed your family with bread for nearly 10 years.
That's a really fascinating fact. So 1 acre of wheat can provide enough wheat to make enough bread to feed a family for 10 years.
That's a lot of food.
That's a lot of bread, isn't it?
A lot of bread.
And a lot of wheat. Well done, Avenue Primary School. You've obviously been paying a lot of attention and learning lots from all the resources that you found online. We're going to be learning how to make simple wheat biscuits later on in this online field trip. But there are lots of other cereals, aren't there, Charles, that are made from wheat? And we do have some here. Wheat is very important.
We provide a wheat product like that goes to the factories, and then they can turn it into lots of different types of breakfast cereals, all with different cooking processes and toasting processes, and they all healthy, interesting products.
Fantastic. I think a lot of the children can recognise these and have them most mornings, and you probably recognise them like this because these are all the colourful packages that they all come in. And children, it is really important to remember as well that most cereals have sugar and salt added to them to help them taste better, and there are quite a few cereals that do have a lot of sugar added as well, so it's really important to pay attention to the front cover of the box where you can see all the nutritional values there, so that you know what you are eating and when you're choosing something at the supermarket as well with your family. But all the ones that we have here are either low or medium in sugar, so these are quite good ones to choose. Okay, we're learning so much already, Charles. I think we should give the children an opportunity to ask you a few questions. So let's go back over to the Avenue Primary School now, and let's get some questions from Mr. Kelly's class.
Has the extreme weather of recent years affected your crop production?
That's a really interesting question. So, Charles, has the extreme weather over recent years affected your the wheat crops?
Climate change is obviously having some big impact. Where we are in England and Northern Europe, in many ways, it's helping crop production because we are having more rainfall, which is essential towards production, producing good quality crops.
Fantastic. I'll remember that next time I look out and I moan about the rain. So children, it is important that we do have lots of rain. Very important. It makes Charles happy. That's a really great question. Let's get another question from the Avenue Primary School.
If your crops are not growing well, what do you do?
That's a really good question. So Charles, what do you do if your crops aren't growing that well?
Well, if you plant them in the autumn and they don't grow, you can plant them again in the spring. However, a good farmer will know if his crop's doing well, and he can feed it and kill off the weeds, and he can help make the crop grow better. But there's a lot of skill in growing a good crop.
Okay. So I guess it's a bit like having a plant at home, and you have to water it and make sure it's got everything it needs to grow.
It needs looking after.
Fantastic. Great questions. Let's go over to Clover Hill Primary School now to see if we have any questions from Mrs. Rogerson's class.
How are the grains not lost when the wheat is cut?
That's a really good question. So how do you make sure that the grains aren't lost when the wheat is cut, Charles?
Well, that comes down to the farmer. When he goes through with his combine harvester, he has to make sure it's set and he doesn't go too fast, and he keeps it inside the tank so he can load the trailers. If he goes too fast, it will go over the back end of the combine.
It's an art to that as well then. Can we get one more question from Mrs. Rogerson's class?
How do you turn the grains into different cereal shapes?
Oh, that's a really great question. So Charles, how are the grains turned into the different cereal shapes that we get in our packets?
Well, each factory has its own method. It cooks the grain entire, and then it will mould them and shred them and form them into lots of different shapes and compact them.
Makes it nice and exciting for us, doesn't it, when we have our breakfast? Thank you so much, Charles, and great questions, children. Don't worry, Spratton Hall Primary and Preston Green Primary, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask Charles some questions later on in this online field trip. But now it's time for a really short video. This is all about wheat, how it's grown and how it's harvested. Enjoy.
What is whole grain breakfast cereal? Breakfast cereal was invented as a tasty meal in the United States of America around 150 years ago. It was a new way of getting the people of America to eat more fibre, helping them to stay fit and healthy. Breakfast cereals today can be made from all sorts of grains like barley, oat, and rice. But many are made from one very important crop: wheat. Whole grain wheat is good for us because it releases its energy slowly and steadily. This is why we use it in lots of different foods that we eat. When we eat the whole grain, we eat the entire seed of the plant. It is made up of the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. The bran is the protective outer skin of the seed and is high in fibre and B vitamins. The germ is the embryo. This will become a new plant if the seed is germinated. The endosperm, which is the largest part of the seed, contains all the food that the germ would need to start growing into a new plant. Each year the farmer keeps some of the wheat grains he produces to plant his new crop. The planting usually takes place in October, when the soil is still warm from the summer, but moist from the autumn rain. These conditions give the wheat all it needs to grow strong and healthy. Throughout spring, the warm sunshine encourages the plants to grow. The farmer leaves the wheat in the fields for around 10 months until August. When it's fully grown, it can reach a height of up to 1 metre tall. Once it has turned from green to golden, the farmer knows the wheat is finally ready for harvest. To harvest the wheat, the farmer uses a special machine called a combine harvester. The combine harvester cuts and gathers the wheat, as well as separating the protective casings, called the chaff, from the edible